August, Charlotte County Property Appraisers sends out trim notices to county property owners. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tracy with CCTV, here with Paul Polk to learn about the county's trim notices. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you
So,
for coming in to see us
What
today.
is a trim notice?
Trim notice. This is a truth and millage notice. Notice of proposed taxes, property taxes, and non-ad valorem assessments. What this does is in August, middle of August each year, property appraiser mails out the trim notice to the property owners. It gives them an idea of what the current taxable value will be, what the last year's taxable value was, and what those taxes that are associated with those values will be for the upcoming year. It also gives an idea of what they were last year compared to this coming year. If we go through the trim notice, the top portion of the trim notice is going to give you the last year's values, taxable values, as well as last year's millage rate and the associated taxes with that millage rate. The next column will give you this year's taxable value and the proposed millage rate that the taxing authorities are considering for the upcoming budget year. There's a lot of information on here. I stress that folks take a look at these, pay attention to them. The top of the bill or trim notice, it says this is not a bill, do not pay. So people tend to discard them real quickly and don't really pay attention to them. But especially if you're new to the area, if you've come from a different state, or if you moved into Charlotte County from another county in the state of Florida, it's good to look at this information to make sure all our information is correct. It's going to have your taxable values, your assessed values, and your just value, market value. It also is going to have any exemptions that you're available for, whether it's the homestead exemption, any veteran disability exemptions, any of those exemptions that are applied to your property specifically. You need to make sure we've captured those. A lot of times we'll get questions after the fact that, hey, where's my homestead exemption? Well, if you did not qualify for homestead exemption, you would have been mailed a denial letter sometime during the summer. Also, it gives you the information on your non-ad valorem assessments. Those are on the back side of the trim notice. These are not based on values set by our office. They are additional fees that are collected by the taxing authorities for the listed items on the trim notices. There's also an area on the top of the back side that has the hearing information, budget hearing information. So this is the preliminary process of the budget process, preliminary step in the budget process where the taxing authorities have set their budgets or deciding on their budgets, and they're going to have public hearings to make those final decisions on those budgets. That's the opportunity. These public hearings are the opportunity for the public to come and speak on those budget recommendations. It's an opportunity for them to come in and question whether they agree with that tax rate, millage rate, or not. Also at the bottom of the page, on the front page, is your taxable value information, your information about your property specifically, what your value was last year, what it is this year for this coming year, and also any exemptions, like I said before. That's a good indication of what your taxes are going to be. This is going to give you this is the proposed notice, so it's going to give you those proposed tax that you'll be owed in November when those go out.
Now, what is the Save Our Homes? Let's explain a little bit what that is.
The Save Our Homes cap is a limitation to homesteaded properties. Each year, that assessed value can only go up a maximum of 3%. So typically it's less than that. It's based on the change in consumer price index or 3%, whichever is whichever is less. So this year, the change in consumer price index was about 1.4%. So if you're a homesteaded property owner and made no changes to the property physically, no new construction, haven't added a lot from next door, that assessed value is capped at 1.4%. For your non-homesteaded properties, there's a 10% cap on assessed value, but that does not apply to your school taxes. It applies to the other taxing authorities, but not to your school taxes. So in that case, if the property went up 10% or greater, the assessed value on your non-school assessments would be capped at 10%, and those associated taxes as well.
And what is the homestead, and how do you apply for that?
Homestead is for permanent residents. If you own and occupy the home as of January 1st of our tax year, you can make an application in our office, either online, on our ccappraiser.com website, in the office, or you can do it by mail. That sets up your cap going forward. But again, it has to be your primary residence, and you'd have to provide documentation for us to see that as your primary residence. Typically, we're looking for your driver's license, your voter registration, vehicle registration, those types of things. But that's important, because if it is your primary residence, you need to take advantage of having that benefit of having that cap. Because over the years, it can make a big difference in your assessed value. That cap value can be a big difference, especially in a market we're seeing right now where property value is going up so much. So it's important to do that. And again, if you change ownership, if you buy a home, if you're new to Charlotte County, or if you've moved within Charlotte County, you do need to reapply. It doesn't just follow you automatically. You will need to come to our office or go online and reapply for that homestead exemption. Also, a big thing with a homestead exemption is somebody who has purchased a home that has previously been homesteaded. That's a big question we get every year, is why did my taxes go up so much from year over year when I just purchased a home? The property owner before me was only paying a certain amount, now I'm paying double. Florida law requires us to reassess each property after a change of ownership. So that cap that the prior owner had established over that course of their ownership of the property, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it can be a big difference. But after that change of ownership, the January after that change of ownership, we're going to reassess that property and start back at the market value, and then go forward. If they're homesteaded, they'll be capped going forward. But we do have that reset in taxable value after that change of ownership. So that's a lot of questions we get from that. We get a lot of questions about that, especially because it's typically a very large increase in taxes. Because again, depending on the ownership, the length of ownership.
Now, what is the appeal process?
The appeal process, once these trim notices are mailed, usually mid-August, second or third week of August, once they're mailed, you have 25 days to appeal the value, or if you have any questions on the value. We ask you to come talk to us first. If you have a question, on your value, please contact our office at the numbers provided on the trim notice. And if you don't agree with that after you've met with us, you can file a petition with the Value Adjustment Board, which is handled through the clerk of the court's office. And then that was set up, then the clerk will set up a hearing date for that petition with a special magistrate who will hear the case. It's a quasi-judicial process where we both sit before a special magistrate, and each side will present their evidence to support their value.
Okay. You talked a little bit about it. There's information on the trim notice, but homeowners can come out and voice their concerns at these public meetings, correct?
Correct. If they have any questions concerning value, they need to contact our office, or the exemptions, they need to contact our office. But if they have a concern on the millage rate, the proposed millage rate, or the taxes, or the non-ad valorem assessment, the fees on the backside of the trim notices, they need to go to those public hearings or call those taxing authorities directly. That's not something that we can transfer you to those departments, but it's best to contact them directly. And again, if you have a question with the budget, you need to go to these budget hearings that are listed on the back of the trim notices. And also I want to point out that, again, you have to look at both sides. You have to do the math. You have to add up the taxes on the front side and the non-ad valorems on the back side to get your total tax bill that you're going to see from the tax collector's office in early November.
Okay, very good. And how can someone go about contacting you?
They can contact our office at the numbers listed on the trim notice, or they can go on our website. Our website has a lot of information on there. Hopefully that can answer some of the questions, but if they need to talk to us directly, they can call us on the numbers listed, or come to our office. We got 3 office locations here in Murdock, Punta Gorda, and in San Casa and Inglewood.
All right, terrific. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much.
Make sure when you get your trim notice in the mail that you take time to look at it and get information on both sides of the trim notice. For CCTV News You Can Use, I'm Elizabeth Tracy.